What is happening, guys, and welcome back to the channel. First things first, make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe if you're new. And unfortunately, England's wait goes on. Still no major trophy since 1966. Hopefully it won't be another 55-year wait, but it was heartache for Gareth Southgate and the whole of the country last night as England lost to Italy 3-2 on penalties. To dissect the game and the major talking points, as always, I'm joined by George. And mate, first things first, I think Gareth Southgate sprung a little bit of a surprise with his with reverting back to a back five. Did you expect to see that when the team news was released?
No, we both said that we thought it'd be a 4-2-3-1 to start, but he has notoriously in this competition, tailored games to suit the opposition. So going with the five, again, throughout the whole tournament, I've not been opposed to anything that Southgate's done tactically. Because he's proved a lot of doubters wrong with lots of big calls that he's made throughout. And I have to say that the five was probably the correct decision. Certainly, if you look at the first couple of, the first 20 minutes or so. So I was surprised, yes, but we've seen the five already in this tournament. It has worked well. We've seen Trippier with his delivery and everything else. So no, I was happy with the lineup for sure.
I'll tell you what, mate, what a start. I couldn't believe it. I was not expecting there to be England to be one up inside 2 minutes. It's a great goal, and it fully, vindicated going with that five. Harry Kane drops deep into a pocket, causes problems, plays a lovely ball out to Kieran Trippier, who whips a great cross in, and Luke Shaw's there at the back post to volley past Donnarumma. Mate, what were you thinking after 2 minutes when that goal goes in?
I thought it was coming home, mate. To be honest with you, I thought just. Everything in this tournament seemed to be going for us. And then, what an electric start. And actually, it came from a bit of a nervous start from Maguire passing it back and giving away a corner. And then we catch them on the break. Kane dropping deep, lovely crossfield ball out to Trippier. And then, what a finish from Luke Shaw. He's probably been the standout player of the tournament for us. And then obviously, as you're going to come on to, all the controversy and the debates come from what we did afterwards and what we decided to do. But certainly the first 20 minutes, we have to just try and sink that in as an individual bit and just say that the whole nation was, that was Croatia, the semi-final of the World Cup times 10 in terms of the atmosphere and really believing that actually, if we get a second, we kill the game. But an unbelievable goal, and what a start for us it was.
And obviously, there's been a little bit of time for the dust to settle on this. And I think myself, and I'm sure a lot of other England fans included, feel that this was perhaps a massive missed opportunity, just in terms in that first half, as you alluded to, particularly that first 25 minutes, half an hour, we were absolutely all over the Italians. They looked all at sea. It looks like they hadn't turned up. They were struggling to get on the ball. They were giving the ball away. We were having so much success down that side with Trippier getting in behind Emerson every time. And my biggest disappointment is that they were there for the taking. We had them on the ropes and we didn't go to try and kill the game. And instead we decided to sit back and try and hold out a 1-0. That was my biggest disappointment, and the fact that we only had one other shot on we had one shot on target from minute 3 after the goal all the way to the end of the game. That's unacceptable. What's your opinion on my thoughts and other people's thoughts that we didn't go and try and kill the game when we were in the ascendancy and ultimately paid the biggest price for it?
Look, I was listening to Talk Sport last night. I was listening to the commentary. I was listening to you guys on, our personal chat, and I was getting a bit angry because I couldn't disagree more. I honestly couldn't. Being Chelsea fans and seeing the Champions League final, how that panned out, I don't think anyone can argue that when we went 1-0 up, you've got a scenario where you stick or twist. And we decided to try and hold them out. Now, granted, Italy are a very good side and they're going to have chances, but he's gone 5 at the back and everyone praises the goal because we've still had at that point, the amount of people that criticise Southgate for having X amount of defensive players on the pitch. Well, we were 1-0 up for 67 minutes against the Italians, who have been the best team in the tournament. And it's worked for us all tournament. So for the people to criticise something that has literally got us to the position where we've got a chance to win the tournament, I think is just I think it's just a bit unfair. I can't recall any real clear-cut opportunity that Italy had to say, oh, that was terrible defending, or oh, they should be 3 or 4 up at this stage. Yes, they get the goal eventually, and at that point he changes the system, which suits people who want more attacking football, because he's dropped one of the defenders. He took Trippier off. He's brought on Saka and Henderson, and I just think, if you're a manager and something's been working for you all tournament, I mean, Pickford's got the Golden Glove. We've kept numerous amount of clean sheets. So why at 1-0 up would you not play that way? I just don't. People who say, oh, let's get all these attacking players on and go for it. Well, Italy would have loved that, because they would have got all the space in behind. We wouldn't have any players from the front, from pretty much midfield onwards, taking a defensive responsibility. And I don't think we would have seen out even the 120 minutes, or even the 90 minutes for that matter, if we'd gone for that approach. So I'm still angry about the people who are, negative about Southgate and negative about the game, because ultimately we've come up against a very experienced side, and we've lost on spot kicks. I mean, we took them all the way.
Do you not think though, mate, that when you score so early in the game, like 2-3 minutes in, like we did, that it's a big gamble to think, right, we've scored in the first couple of minutes, let's just shut up shop now? I think I would have less of a problem with it if we'd scored, say, just before half time or after like 50, 60 minutes, and you try and shut out for the last half an hour. But the fact we're basically shutting up shop for a whole 90 minutes is, I think that's, even by Southgate's negative pragmatic footballing standards and philosophy he employs, that's kind of taken it a step too far for me. Yes, that style of football has got us into this position, of course, and it's hard to be critical when the results have come from it. But when we're in a major final, we've got the crowd on our side, we scored early, we've got them on the ropes, to not, push home that advantage that we've got, I think was a really big mistake. And if that's 2-0, which it could have easily been 2-0, we definitely were in the ascendancy and could have pushed for that second goal, but we didn't. And ultimately, I think that's perhaps what's cost us the game, because as I'll come on to now, the first half, no complaints. I thought we were spot on. I thought Declan Rice was outstanding. Everyone was very good, and the whole side performed very well as a unit and tactically. But I don't know what you thought, mate, but as soon as we came out for the second half, it was almost like something had been said at half time, and everything we did well in the first half seemed to disappear. Why do you feel that intensity and level of performance we had in the first half suddenly dropped off after half time, and then the Italians dominated for the duration?
Well, firstly, you've got to give credit to the Italians. They're no mugs. I mean, they played some great football, and they've got some very experienced players in there to be able to do that. I mean, the press again caused problems for us. The way they kept the ball and kept composure even at 1-0 down. But again, I think, we don't know what was said in the dressing room, but I assume that Southgate said, look, we've got a 1-0 lead. We've kept clean sheets all tournament. We've stayed solid. Let's keep that. And, if we can nick a chance on the break, we'll take it. But more importantly, if we keep a clean sheet, we win the game. Simple as that. And again, I don't disagree with that approach at all to the game. I mean, yes, people say, in a final, you should go for it a bit more, but that also comes down to the players. So I don't, Harry Kane could have said to himself, well, I'll get in the box more. Some of the players who had, got in positions in the final third could have taken shots. They didn't. So I think they have to take some responsibility as well for not taking chances. And, if I was manager, I don't think I would have changed it either. I would have said, look, let's hold them out. If we keep a clean sheet, we've won the game. They get the goal, of course they do. And I can't sit here and say it wasn't coming. I mean, they did pile on the pressure and we were soaking it up. But on another day, we could keep a clean sheet and we win the game. So let's not forget that Italy didn't beat us in 120 minutes of football either. We've come to a situation where we managed to get to literally a game of pot luck who wins a European final. So I think the one thing I do agree with you is the shots on target. I mean, 2 shots on target in a final is not good enough, and he'll know that, and he'll probably come away in a few days and analyse, how do we get them. But at the end of the day, the things that people are criticising was praised for how we got the goal. I mean, Kane came deep. We had the 5. Trippier was part of that five, set up the goal. Luke Shaw, a fullback, scoring the goals. Bonucci, as a centre half, scored the goal for Italy. So, I mean, I don't understand how people can praise a system and then criticise it in equal measure when I just don't understand that from fans at all.
Are you surprised that he didn't change? Because I certainly think this was a big mistake tactically. Are you surprised that we came out in the second half and sat so deep and allowed them to have so much of the ball? Because I think people underestimate how tiring it is just chasing the ball when you're out of possession for long periods of time. Are you surprised that with wave after wave of attack coming and just, ending up with likes of Maguire and Stones just booting it long up to Kane and it coming straight back, that a change wasn't made earlier and he just made a change to react to the goal when in fact the change should have happened earlier to perhaps prevent the goal?
Yeah, possibly, but we discussed just a minute ago off air that once we change the system from a 5 to a we can see the goal and then we go 4-2-3-1. I think the substitutions that you can make are quite limited because he's not going to change the back four. He's going to keep Walker, Shaw, Stones, and Maguire. He's going to keep on the 70th minute, just before he did change Rice for Henderson, so like for like, took off Trippier and brought on Saka, so a more attacking player. So people who say we didn't go for it, I mean, Saka's more than capable of causing problems. Yes, Mason Mount didn't have the best of games, but it's the work he does off the ball that people don't recognise, that maybe aren't football fans or don't appreciate that side of the game. But I think Grealish is a bit of a luxury player. He comes on and will just be attacking minded. But at 1-1, that's still a dangerous tactic to play, to then say, let's gamble everything and go for it when, we still had time in the game to maybe nick something. I just think the substitutions were limited. So people who say, oh, let's bring on Sancho, Rashford, Saka, Grealish, let's just go for it. 6 attacking players on the pitch. They would have just opened us up. They're a great side. And that would have played into their hands perfectly. So, look, I think respect to Italy, they were the better side on the night, ultimately, I think. There wasn't much in it, but they showed their experience on the night. And I just think people need to chill out a bit and appreciate that, we've gone into the game and we've got a lead. We decided, regardless of whether you think that's right or wrong, we've decided to try and stick and hold out. We held out for 2/3 of the game. They've got a goal, and even then, we've played them for another 45 minutes and managed to get to penalties. So I have no complaints over the substitutions or anything of that. I just want to talk about the use of the bench and the in-game management as well, particularly once it went back to 1-1. I personally feel that the use of the bench on the night was really poor. We've got a bench with so much quality on it, and we've got probably one of the best squads in the tournament, or you could probably argue that France probably got a slightly better squad individually, but there's hardly any squads that are, better than ours. And I thought the use of the bench was really poor. Look, we got players on there, like Jack Grealish, Sancho. I know Foden was missing, Rashford, etc. We've got a lot of quality on that bench. And to wait 70 odd minutes to make a change, and then in extra time as well, to wait to the 100th minute to then bring on some more players, it's too late. It's too late then. I thought Mancini used the bench really well there. He wasn't afraid to take off, kind of his top players. I know Chiesa, who I thought was outstanding on the night, I know he took a slight knock, but he took him off. Verratti, one of his best midfielders, he was out on his feet, took him off, replaced him with Locatelli. And I just think that Southgate's use of the bench was ultimately poor. Look, Sterling's had a great tournament, but Southgate's made bold decisions in this tournament. He's shown people that he can make bold decisions. You cannot tell me that Sterling, who had, by his standards, a fairly poor game, after 90 minutes, do you really think that he deserves another half an hour? A tired Sterling who's been very ineffective. Would you not rather have a fresh Grealish or a fresh Sancho on the pitch to run at that aging defence and cause a lot more problems? To me, I've got to be honest, mate, Sterling doesn't create very much. And on that night, he wasn't a threat at all. So I just think we might have missed the trick with that one, and just the overall use of the bench and not adapting tactically to the way the game was panning out is kind of has cost us a lot there. Yeah, but then are you honestly, as an England manager, going to take off Raheem Sterling, your top goal scorer, or a Harry Kane in that match? I mean, if you're sitting there as England manager, you're really going to have the bollocks to to do that, because I guarantee if they do that and we lose the game in the same scenario, people are going to then hone on in, oh, why did we take off our top goal scorer? Why did we take off our captain?
I mean, I think the Kane one is different. I think Kane can play awful, and because you've got no one of the same ability, or no one really capable of going up and doing a job there, Kane, regardless of how badly he plays, is always going to play. But I don't think Sterling could have any complaints last night if he'd been taken off, because by his standards that he set, he wasn't good last night. And I think we should have really tried to switch it up with something different. Grealish I know you think he's a luxury player. He offers something different. He's not something that people will come up against very often. And I think he could have really posed more of a problem if he'd been given more of a time to impact the game. And in terms of the substitutions right at the end, it was clear for me that Southgate didn't want to win that game in extra time, was playing for the penalties, because we've got Rashford and Sancho on the bench. They could have come on for the second half of extra time and had a real go. As a tiring defence, and we've seen with Chiellini and Bonucci, who were outstanding on the night, the last thing they would have wanted was fresh legs and pace running at them, particularly when they're tired, coming up to the end of 120 minutes. So why the likes of Sancho or Rashford didn't come on earlier, I think was another mistake on the night.
Yeah, but at the moment you've got Rashford, Sancho, and now you're saying you want Grealish on the pitch. You've got three players there. So who are you taking off? You're going to have to take off Sterling, Mount, and possibly even Kane. If you want all of those players to play, who's being sacrificed?
I would have taken off Sterling and Mount, and then I probably wouldn't have put Rashford on. I think Sancho and Grealish probably should have come on a lot earlier. I would have taken off Mount much earlier, and I would have taken off Sterling a lot earlier as well. But ultimately, what do you think of the decision to bring on two players who, let's be honest, haven't featured a lot in this tournament at all, and then to sit on the bench for 120 minutes and to come on and take a spot kick, which is probably the biggest kick in their careers? Do you think that's a lot to ask of two young players, albeit of immense quality and experience?
Well, with a simple answer to your question, I think it is difficult, especially if it's probably your first kick in any football match, to come and take a spot kick, let alone in a European final at Wembley. But what I would say is, obviously, there's been a lot of debates and a lot of discussion about the penalty situation. And, again, I stand by it, mate, because, Gareth has seen something in the penalties in training. That's the first thing. You've got to go by that basis. Secondly, he's got an order which he was comfortable with. Rashford's taken penalties for Manchester United. I had no problems with him taking a penalty similar to Sancho. And then people, even yourself saying, why is Maguire stepping up? Puts it top bin. So at the end of the day, mate, it doesn't matter how experienced you are. Messi missed penalties. Ronaldo misses penalties. Lampard's missed penalties. The very best miss a penalty. It's, and even if you look at the penalty shootout itself, we had chances to win the match. Pickford saves the 100% record from Jorginho. We take the lead in the penalty shootout with the first save, and then Maguire buries it to take the lead. So we had chances still. And ultimately, I think that the Roy Keane thing is just absolute nonsense to say that, he's too young. To say he's too young to take a penalty, people have been going on all England's the whole history about, we don't win tournaments because we play people with a high profile name and the experience, and we don't play players who have no fear. Well, Saka, if he scores the penalty, people say it's the right decision because he's got no fear, take the penalty. If he misses, people say, why not Henderson? Why not Jack Grealish? But Jack Grealish and Henderson can also miss penalties. So I just think to kind of dissect and be negative about an order of a penalty shootout, it's people clutching at straws to blame a manager who they don't like, pretty much.
Last thing on the shootout, mate. Do you think there's any credibility to the opinion that Bukayo Saka shouldn't have been on the fifth penalty? For a guy who's 19, who's never taken a professional penalty in his career, to be on the crucial spot kick when you've got players with a lot more experience who have taken a lot more penalties in their careers. I know Jack Grealish has come out and said that he wanted a penalty. He said that on Twitter this morning. Do you not feel that the manager perhaps could take some responsibility in that it's a big ask to put that much responsibility on a young lad's shoulders? I know he said, look, I want to do it. Do you not feel that there's a trail of thought that perhaps actually he should have been maybe held back to the 6th or a 7th penalty and let one of the more experienced lads. Look, one of the more experienced lads could have stepped up and missed it, but I feel that's a lot of pressure to put on a young man's shoulders.
Perhaps, mate, perhaps. But then I think, Rashford's an experienced footballer and he missed his penalty. And I think if there's one thing that Southgate wouldn't change if he looked back is his penalty shootout order. I think that would have been, if anything, something that he was very firm on going into that final. They all would have known going into that final, if it goes to penalties, these are the people who are taking them and this is the order. They would have known that, no doubt. This was not something that was planned literally a minute before the penalty saying, he might have gone around and said, look, if anyone's changed their mind and doesn't fancy it, that's fine. But no one would have put Maguire in that list, and he took the best penalty. So I just think Southgate's made some huge calls all tournament that have been looked at. I don't think anyone would have had Phillips in the starting lineup. I don't think anyone would have played a back five. No one would have had Trippier in the starting lineup. No one would have had Luke Shaw possibly at left back. And no one would have played Saka in that Germany game. And he's proved us all wrong. So to then pick at straws in a penalty shootout and say, well, Jack Grealish, because he's played so well for Aston Villa, should have taken a penalty over someone who's younger is ridiculous. I mean, personally, I wouldn't have had Saka in my five, but that's just that. But I'm sitting here, I'm not the England manager, so that's not a criticism. That's just my personal preference. But I was still confident in the penalties that we could do it, and we still had chances to do it. So no complaints, mate. No complaints.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a lottery when it goes to the penalties, but I just feel it could have been, if we'd just gone for it a bit more, it could have been a different story. But ultimately, it panned out the way it did, and England succumbed to another defeat on penalties. But mate, just a quick word. Obviously, Southgate's come in and said in his press conference this morning that he's obviously wants to stay on and take the team through to the World Cup in Qatar. I think that's the right decision. I think he's earned that right to have another go. He, however, also said that he doesn't want to outstay his welcome in reference to staying on for the next Euros as well. Obviously, I don't think there's any question that he's going to be in charge for the World Cup.
No. I think he'll definitely be. He deserves another opportunity at the World Cup. This team's growing. After the World Cup, I think sometimes it's not about just, he's the best manager for the job. I think sometimes things just happen in cycles. So I wouldn't be surprised if he, regardless of what happens at the World Cup, he kind of comes to an end of an era and we change it again. And sometimes you just need that. But I think he definitely deserves another tournament. And look, I think we need to end on a positive note because, for all the negativity that's been spraying about and regardless of personal opinion, it's brought the nation together. We've had a fantastic campaign, a fantastic tournament. It's not been vintage football, but has it ever been with England, really? We've reached our first Euro final ever, first international final since '66. Like I've said, one thing that Southgate has done is got the love for England and international football back in this country, which has been missed. You remember the nightmares of Roy Hodgson with Iceland and not qualifying out of a group. So, come on, let's. It's brought us all together. We've enjoyed it. We've enjoyed the ride. And ultimately, we've lost to a team that have been there and done it before, had more experience, and just had the bottle on the night on the penalties. And that's just, it's the way it goes sometimes. But they'll learn from this. I'm confident that in Qatar, if we do get to that position again, I think we can go one step better. Why not?
No, I think you summed it up perfectly. I think there's a lot to be proud of, with this group of players, and hopefully they can use this experience to learn from and push forward. But ultimately, I think we can be really proud of what the squad's done and how it's brought the country together after a difficult period throughout this pandemic. But it's just a massive disappointment on the night to fall short. But yeah, that's just myself and George's thoughts on the final. Ends in disappointment for England, but I think there's a lot to be positive about for the future. As always, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and we'll catch you in the next one.